you can see how many of these corporations, they want to go into Iraq, they have the idea to go into Iraq, but to even get that corporate presence established is 6 months down the road. And also, let's assume that you are in Iraq, and let's assume you are working there. If you have a judgment outside of Iraq, or are you your corporation is in some dispute mechanism with one of its JVs or counterparties, how do you enforce that? How do you seek relief from the Iraqi courts when your parties, one is in Paris, one is in Angola, and one is in the U.S. And also, Iraq is not party to the most widely accepted convention, the New York Convention. So you're subject to the Iraqi court system almost from the beginning, and I think there's a great reluctance of international corporations to use that jurisdiction for dispute resolution mechanisms, especially given the large amount of resources that are outlaid from the beginning. Again, there's another one major obstacle we see is that the laws that they're beholden to just generally aren't available in English, and the ones that aren't annotated or shepherdized. So there's going to be these codes have been, I think, very, very meticulously updated and very meticulously used, often only exist in Arabic, and you can't easily understand what's still binding now, and so it's very problematic if you are a compliance officer, say, in some large corporation, and you want to invest in Iraq, you aren't sure what laws are even in force. The second obstacle I see time and time again is the corruption issue, and it's such a huge issue. I think what's going on right now is the Department of Justice is increasing their enforcement of FCPA violations, and so to even work with I'll give you a quick example. There's one major electrical company we work with. It's a Fortune 500 company. To even do business with an Iraqi counterpart, they need to hire a law firm to do a due diligence on that company to determine every single level of management and ownership and have that company sign a FCPA waiver. So it couldn't be a bigger issue because, again, at nearly all levels of the government, you encounter some types of corruption, and they're pretty creative about how it happens, and they're pretty creative about the way it goes. It is criminalized under the Iraqi Penal Code. If you look at the investment guide, if you have it on page, I think 58, it's a good description of how it is criminalized. Or 56, sorry. At the end of the day, though, it's still rampant. Someone asked me, when will it stop? How long do we have to wait before this corruption stops, before it subsides? And I thought about it for a while, and I said, well, how long did it take in the Eastern European countries and the Commonwealth countries, the CIS countries? And it's still prevalent, but what happened was those wages for those ministerial employees need to rise to a level that they don't have any interest or need to have a bribe, because of right now, they have no other way to live their lives than with a bribe. So many companies, I think, they see the landscape in Iraq, they see the people that they're dealing with, they see the ministries that they have to deal with, and they honestly see how difficult it's going to be, see the amount of cost on top of their investment. It's already a special investment, and they come back to and they're frustrated, and they're understanding frustrated. The next big obstacle we see is security, and as I said in the beginning, this is not a discussion of the security situation of Iraq or the politics of Iraq, but I can say that the security situation as it relates to companies is a cost, and these corporations don't have to, which would normally just be doing business in the U.S. or Europe, now have to hire a security company, and these security companies are extremely expensive. I flew out of Baghdad 2 weeks ago. To fly round trip to Baghdad was $2,500 from the U.S. To get picked up on a one-way from Baghdad airport to the green zone was $2,500 for 10 kilometers. So I would have to work 5 hours at my billable rate, or more than that probably, just to even pay off that airport pickup. So if you can apply that to a large corporation operating in the West Karna field with all of the material that they have to protect, all of the employees they have to protect, all of the issues that they need to deal with, they have to add a security cost on top of that. So to say it maybe a different way, it's not the security issue which scares U.S. companies from being involved there, but it's the cost of security. That's cost prohibitive. And that is something that they have to bear internally. And the last obstacle we see time and time again is the companies asking how they can get people in and out of Iraq, especially when they're not registered yet. And it's in flux. No one really knows. It changes. There is an immigration law in force. There are rules in force. The SOFA Accords, the Status of Forces Agreement, discusses contractors and how they have to have proper immigration, but it was never really enforced until the March 2010 elections. So the use of Department of Defense badges as immigration continued. It changed abruptly. It changed abruptly again. There are Ministry of Interior officials in some ports of entry. They're not in others. So it's extremely difficult, and especially when, again, you want to understand what laws are in force. You want to understand how you can create a business model and how you can apply it to a difficult region and difficult country. I can understand how difficult that might be when you can't even, when it's difficult to even know how you get people in and out of there. So what people are often doing nowadays is they're working in tandem with a registered security company to glean visas, and they're using the security company's connections or previous contracts to glean visitor visas from them, as the Department of Defense badges are no longer being used. I won't really spend too much on this because I've already gone further than I should have, but I will say that the SOFA Accords that came down in late 08, early 09, they're in place. Again, the immigration officials weren't even, the immigration part of it wasn't enforced until March of 2010, and that's an internal Iraqi question of why it wasn't. But the new Iraq is not a security-based Iraq. The new Iraq, I think, is a private corporation-based Iraq. The time of security is waning, and so the corporations that are being involved see the opportunities and they see the potential there. It's just a matter of how much they can overlook, essentially. How many obstacles are there? Because these are just the main ones. We can go on forever. And these obstacles that we see would be, I think, prohibitive if it wasn't any other jurisdiction but Iraq. I mean, how can you ask a oil company to overlook who owns the land that they want to drill on? I mean, these are major obstacles that I think that for me is the test of the next 10 years in Iraq, is how much these corporations will overlook in terms of costs and in terms of and they will compare this under a marginal cost type of return to see how much return they get versus how much obstacles they have to overlook.